Alright guys, so we're going to try this again. I'm going to take the transmission apart. So we got this car that it's going in. I have a 5.3, this is a TH400, and we're going to pull this thing apart. We're going to do a full rebuild and trans brake and some pump mods and all kinds of stuff. So it's going to have a full reverse manual valve body with trans brake. So let's get started. I did already take some of the pump bolts out. These are just a 13mm head bolt. There's 6 of them. I'm going to pull these out and I'll set them down, and the pump's probably going to be a little bit difficult to get out, so right away I'm going to go to the pan. We'll take the pan bolts off. Probably take them right off. That was pretty good. Pan's actually pretty clean, that's not too bad. So I'm going to take the pan and put it over here, and then I'm just going to take all of the bolts and then I'm going to put it inside the pan, but keep them kind of separated. Those are the pan bolts. These are the pump bolts. And then I'm going to go take the filter off. And this filter has kind of a weird looking little long guy like this. And then you can... Oh. And next you can pull this little pickup tube off. This is marked. It says case right there and filter on this side. I'm just going to put that right with the filter. So now you can go ahead and take the valve body bolts off. So there's 2 different bolts here that are a little bit different size. It looks like they're like a 3/8. That's what I got here. And then the rest are all going to be 13s. That one looks a little bit smaller. We'll see. Yeah, that one's smaller, but it's not that small. So let's go ahead and get all the 13s off. And you're going to want to watch this part here, because when you put this back together, there's this little detent spring. That's what this is. So when you shift, it connects inside there. And when you put this together, this part has to be inside of this manual valve there. So we'll put that off to the side, and then we'll get the rest of them off. For now, I'm going to grab a 10. It's actually 11. So now we got the valve body loose. And I'm just going to have to pay attention where those 11s were. So here, here, and here, and then the rest were 13s. I'm used to a 4L80, so bear with me, guys. They're very similar, but a little bit different. So just remember which bolts go where. You should be able to tell, though, because they're completely different sizes. So you should be able to figure that out. So now I'm going to release the valve body. And I do have these 2 ports right here. So we're going to pull this thing over, set it off to the side, and then we'll get the gasket off. The separator plate came with it. We're just going to try to get this gasket off as clean as we can. I'm gonna level this thing off though, because there's check balls inside here. You guys can see that. There's like a little check ball inside there. Just little steel balls. So we want to make sure that we don't lose those things, and then we can get them back in the right spots. So with the trans brake, some of those check balls are going to be removed or non-existent. I'll have to verify with the instructions, but something happens with those. And get that guy back in the right position. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it looks like. Yeah, so I might grab a magnet and pull those things out, and then we can start getting the guts out. I think I'll probably take this section off. Alright. So this actually doesn't look too bad for how bad I thought the transmission was originally when I got this thing. When I originally got this transmission, it was like completely full of pink milkshake, I called it. It was completely pink. Oh, that guy don't want to come out. There we go. All right. So bear with me on the names of the parts here. This is like for the reverse band, but I think this is like the 1-2 accumulator spring also. Don't quote me on that, but so that can all come out. This can come out. There's a spring inside of here. So we'll just set all this stuff in the pan. That way you can kind of keep it separated and you don't lose anything. And you got a good spot to hold everything in. So this I'm going to pull off. Just a little spade connector. I think we're going to end up reusing this section for the trans brake. If I remember the instructions right, we're going to use that to trigger the trans brake. I'll get my magnet and pull all the check balls out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We counted 6 before, guys. Am I crazy? 6. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave these stuck to the magnet, and then I'll put the magnet in the pan. And we probably don't have to remove the parking pawl. We can probably leave that there. So what this does is when you put it in park, see that? So now it spins, but when I put this thing in park, and then you park it in, put it in gear and you roll a little bit, now it's in park, it locks in position. And when you move it out of gear, it moves that little parking pawl out. So then it'll spin freely. So what we're gonna have here is this bolt right here is connected to the center support, so that's gonna have to come out. It should be like a 3/8. If it's like the 4L80, that might be a 3/8 12 point. So this one here was 3/8 12 point. The case was a little bit mushroomed out though, so it was tough to get out. So this is going to be for the center support, and this is also a lube hole too. So there's going to be a lubrication hole in there, so don't lose that thing. And we should be good to start working on getting the pump out. Hey, you want to find me my little pry bar like this one? Can you look around and find that one? Okay.
Do you see that one anywhere?
I don't see it anywhere. Can you find it? You find it. I need it.
I saw it somewhere.
Okay.
It was under the car.
It was under the car. All right, so I'm gonna take this pry bar behind this. Down here, there's a little port inside there. You can see the port of the pump. I'll start to pry away at this thing and then get the pump off, just like that. All right, so now we can take the pump off. We'll set the pump off over here, and then now we're ready to start pulling the guts. Okay, so next we're gonna start pulling everything apart. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to pull everything apart and then set it on the table exactly how I pull it out. So it's all in order when I pull it out. So let's do that. So we're going to pull out input shaft, and forward drum is going to be all connected. So I'm just going to take this whole section, and look at how rusty this thing. This must have been sitting for a long time at some point. So that's interesting. So we're going to take this thing and just set it over. Leave it just like it came out. So then we're going to pull the direct drum out. This one's a little tricky. You gotta grab it like that with your fingers. And want to be careful because there's going to be some washers in there. So I'm going to try to keep these exactly like they are and make sure I'm not losing anything here. And next we're gonna pull this band out. It's like a 1-2 band, I believe it is. So we're gonna pull this thing out. I'm just gonna wrap it right back around the direct drum. And then this is gonna be the intermediate snap ring. So I'm gonna have to get another pry bar. So there's gonna be a snap ring and then some clutches. I'm gonna try to find where the split is. And the split is actually, if I'm looking at it this way, the split is actually at about 2 o'clock in the snap ring. It should be at 9 o'clock over here. So the snap ring's actually in the wrong position, which that's fine. It might have just rotated as it was living. I'm gonna pull this out and put the snap ring off to the side here. And then we should be able to pull the intermediate clutches out of here. So we have a steel, clutch steel, and you see how burnt and black everything is. So these are a little toasty. Make sure that that's all we gotta get out. And then now we have another snap ring, which again, they're up here. So normally they're supposed to be at like the 9 o'clock position. So I wonder if this was reassembled at one point and wrong, or they just worked themselves over to that position. I can pry easily and then get that snap ring to come out of the groove. Can be a little tricky. All right. So that one's out. This is like the center support snap ring. So this one actually has a beveled edge on it. I don't know if you can see that, but this edge is beveled. That edge is flat on the bottom, and then the top is beveled. That is going to be your center support snap ring that goes on top of the center support. Underneath the intermediate clutches, on top of the center support. So now this whole center support section, I should be able to grab it and just yank it out. All right, so that's your center support. And see those 3 holes right there? These are lubrication holes, or fluid holes, and that is that bolt that I pulled out before. So if you don't take that bolt out, you're not going to be able to get the center support out. And there's also another washer down there, like a thrust washer. You can see like brown inside there. So I'm going to make sure I don't lose that thing. All right, so there's another snap ring. I'm going to pull that out first. So there's another snap ring that goes underneath the center support. And this is the whole like rear carrier assembly. So that just all comes out. Be a little bit careful because this shaft comes out. This is like, I believe it's called a sun shaft. So that comes out. So you'll want to grab both of these together when you pull them all out. All right, so after that, we have in the back of the case, there is this little thrust washer here. And when we put it back together, we're going to be replacing this with like a rollerized section, like a Torrington bearing, 3 bearing setup. So what that's going to have on the back end, it's got this little guy here. It's got 4 little tangs in it. It goes in the back of the rear carrier section, and then that all rides together. Like a little bearing on the back of the case. All we have left is the reverse band. So we're gonna pull that guy out, and there's our reverse band. Actually doesn't look too bad. So that's pretty much it. That's the whole disassembly of the transmission. Do have to pull the governor out of it on the back side. So let's flip it over and do that. Okay, so down on this side you have the governor plate. That'll come off and then governor will come right out. Just 4 13mm head bolts. I'll set it off to the side and I'll keep the bolts inside the plate. Governor inside the plate just so you don't lose it. We have this little speed sensor. Give it a few love taps. Just gonna push on it from the other side. And then launch it on the floor. But then we have the vacuum modulator here. That's just one 13mm bolt. And then that pulls out. So there's a valve inside here. So other than that, everything should be pretty much ready to go. So now I'm gonna leave it just like this. I'm gonna leave all this stuff in there. The parking pole, and that's all I'm gonna leave in there. I'm gonna take the rear section off. That's just some 15mm. Get the big boy out. This one doesn't take no for an answer. Alright, now that just comes off. It should be completely disassembled now. What I'm going to do, just for the sake of not losing some of the stuff, I am going to put these bolts back in there. Might actually use these as spacers when I take it to go wash it. So what I'll do is I'll take it like to the car wash or something, and then oven cleaner and spray it all down, get it all clean. So that's it for this video. That's the disassembly. Everything's torn down. Overall, took probably half hour maybe to do the whole thing, start to finish. So there you go.